All right, what's up? Actually, I'm gonna try it. This is a really stupid camera setup, but hey, I learned to put it landscape this time, so don't dog me on that. All right. Um. So this is what part 3 of the Predator Swap video, and I apologize up front. This is probably gonna be a little more long-winded because it's gonna be one take and it's midnight. So if I can't talk any more than I already can't, and I say something weird or whatever, just know that I'm tired and it's after a day of work. So give me a break. But as you can kind of see, I think, yeah, you can see it. I have the heat exchanger in and the belt drive on, and so we'll start with chronologically what happened. So I think from the last video, I had the unit on, but I didn't have the throttle body, and I definitely didn't have the belt drive. So the throttle body went on perfectly fine after I got some bolts for it. Went on just fine, no issues with that. It was worth noting that I found a packet of bolts in the bottom of the box that I got from VMP, so I probably just misplaced them. So I'm not going to dig VMP on that. And the belt drive, I am going to dig them a little bit on. So it's their no grind FEAD kit, so FEAD, front engine accessory drive kit. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to convert your AC drive or your back pulley or your back belt to the drive belt for your supercharger. So with this car, and I think most cars in the 11 to 14 range, the back belt was a stretch belt because all it ran was from the crank pulley to the AC, and that was it. And so now their kit gives you a tensioner and a couple pulleys to run not only your AC but also the supercharger. And it went together just fine, except for the top bolt on the boomerang bracket was too short for my liking. Because how it goes together is they give you kind of like, it's like a top hat. So you run a bolt with a washer through the pulley, and then the pulley sits on a bracket that's also, it's like a fat washer almost, but it's top hat shaped. And what it does is it lets the pulley ride on it, and it centers it against the boomerang bracket, so it's not cantered any way, and it's parallel to the front of the engine. And so after you run the bolt through all that, it's like a quarter of an inch that's sticking out, and it's just, for me, it wasn't long enough for me to feel good and safe about it being ran at any sort of tension, especially with any vibration or anything. So I went out and I bought a cap head screw to put in there that was probably about a quarter of an inch longer, so it's sticking into the bracket about a half an inch now, and I just prefer it a lot more. The bottom one wasn't an issue. There was no length issue, and the type of screws that they give you are kind of like a flat hex, and so the bottom one kind of has to be flat, the one that they give you, because it has to clear the water pump pulley, which is fine because, like I said, there wasn't any issue with it. But other than that, the belt drive was fine. I'm waiting on a 3.6-inch pulley, but UPS is kind of kissing their own butt, doing whatever it is, taking forever, so I'm waiting for that. But once I get that, I can get a belt on and figure out belt size and actually put the belt system together. I'll actually show you guys. I'll show you the belt system. Okay, so this is the belt drive. So this is the screw, the top one there. If I can focus. That cap head is what I replaced. And below it, if I can, is the stock one. You can see it needs to be pretty thin just to clear the water pump pulley. But other than that, the belt drive went together fine. Zoom out. Okay. Yeah, and so how the belt's going to run is it's going to run off of your balancer. And if we're going clockwise here, it's going to go off your balancer, up over this tensioner, and then down around your AC pulley or whatever you have to delete it, up over this pulley here, and then underneath the top pulley on the boomerang bracket, over the supercharger, down below the second pulley on the boomerang bracket, and then over your crank pulley again. And so it is worth noting that this pulley too, the top one here, has two different threaded holes. So I think it's in the top one right now. You can also bump it down a little bit more, which I think will move these two closer together, which might give you more belt wrap. It might just be more of a clearance thing more than anything. But everything else went together pretty well. I mean, that one's pretty straightforward. They just give you some hardware. It sits on a boss kind of like that, and just screws in. This one's not assembled all the way because you have to actually have to tuck the belt in behind it, obviously, because there's an arm here, so you can't just put it straight on. You have to tuck it behind it, so I didn't assemble it just because I got to pull it off and then put the belt in and then tighten it. And then everything else I think is there. The only thing aside from the belt that I would complain about is oh my goodness, give me a second here. The only thing I'd complain about other than the bolt is, shoot, what was it? Oh, there's no torque specs. So even in their videos, they don't give you, they don't even tell you to like snug it down or anything. They just tighten it and move on. Like they don't tell you, oh, you know, 2 ugga-duggas, or, you know, there are torque specs for the front cover that I followed when I did the oil pump gears, but I'm not entirely certain that you're supposed to follow that for these because that's a torque and a degree. So I just snugged them down and put thread lock on them, and we'll see how that goes. I might recheck the, you know, the snugness of them before I fire it up for the first time and run it. But I mean, that's just something that'd be nice. Of, hey, these are torque specs, kind of important, but whatever. And then I put I'm most of the way through putting the intercooler on. It's gonna need some loving touches to it, and so I think I said in the last video, but I bought a triple pass heat exchanger for an 11 through 14 Coyote on Craigslist, and I got it almost half off. So what are these things, like $900 new? And I got it for $550, brand new, like never. It was just it. He opened the box and that was it. And so, I mean, putting the heat exchanger on itself wasn't bad. You just kind of put some grommets in the holes, and then you take out your two. Oh, you can't see it. Your two 13 mil bolts on either side of the crash bar on the inside. And you replace them with bolts that they give you, which are longer, so that you can put the heat exchanger on the back end, on the back end of the crash bar, and then put nuts on it to hold it on. Problem is I didn't. Maybe they're in a box somewhere that I haven't seen yet, but again, I didn't see any nuts in the box. Nope. Pause. So I had to go to the store. I bought extra. I bought nylocks, so these are nylocked on, or this is nylocked on, and then the Z bracket that they give you, which is basically just an aluminum piece of sheet metal that they like bent in a Z, and it goes on the driver's side of your crash bar to hold your intercooler pump. They give you, I think, 2 like screws that are probably 3/4 of an inch long, and a couple nuts. And I haven't seen any directions on how to put it together or whatnot. So I went out and bought 2 more of the bolts that they used for the heat exchanger, and I took out the crash bar bolts on the right side and did the same thing that I did with the heat exchanger, except for I did it with the Z bracket. So long bolts are going through, and then nylocks on the back, holding the Z bracket on, and then I used the little ring clamp that they give you with the intercooler pump to hold the intercooler on, or not the intercooler pump on. I think it needs to be rethought out. on my part, because just how it can rotate and stuff, I'm not entirely happy with it. Here, I'll show you that too in case you're trying to do this. I don't know what I get for trying to mix and match parts, but they should all be for the same car, so I don't know exactly what's going on. But so these two holes here and those two holes over there are for the heat exchanger. And then this is the same setup, so there's just two of the same bolts that are in here from factory. And so I just pulled those out, put two more bolts in, like the ones that they give you for those, and then put nylocks on the end. Yeah, you can see them there. They don't actually, like, food for thought, they don't actually have to be as long as these. I was just an idiot and didn't think about that, so I bought the same length ones, and so you can see they're sticking out a long ways. I mean, that's probably inch and a half too far. So if you have these bolts and you want to go this route, just take one of these bolts, subtract an inch, and you should be pretty good. And then they're just nylocked on the back, and then with washers on both the head side and the nut side. And then this is just held on with their little hose bracket that they got right there. But like I said, it's literally only held on with that one screw, so this thing can kind of pivot this way, and I'm not entirely impressed with that. And then so the line for my heat exchanger, because the way the system's going to go is it's going to run from this pump into the heat exchanger. And so it's running from that pump, and the outlet for it is kind of underneath it, pointing that way. And I don't know if you can see it. Here. So you can see the line in the back there. It's just running out behind the pump. And then I did have to cut right there. And I ran my line through, or my wire through there as well. I need to tie it up. But those go through, and then it just goes into your heat exchanger right there. Yeah. And so I guess another thing I'm not a fan of is this this adapter plug right here, because it just adapts from the old style Bosch connector right there into the new pump. And here, give me a second. I just think for what this wiring harness costs, these wiring harnesses cost like $150, $200 a piece. You would think, oh my goodness, give me a break here. You would think that, with these wiring harnesses costing like $150, $200 a piece, that they'd just be able to put the right plug on in the first place. But who am I to say I don't run the business? Yeah, so that's what I did for all of that. And then, so how the wiring harness runs is that it runs, or how I ran it, was that it's pretty much one long string that runs across the front of your car, and it goes from a junction over here this way, and as it goes, it tees off. So there's a tee off here for one fan, there's a tee off here for this fan, and then it just dead ends into your pump, and then it junctions over here into two relay boxes, and then it goes up into your engine bay, where you have a ground, two power cables with both with inline fuses, and then a really long cable that goes to your firewall pretty much, because it has to go to the back of your passenger side head, and it's going to tap into a 12-volt source on the back of that. So the only gripe that I have with that is that, at least in this part here, it's too short. I have an excess of wire there, but because it's teed off here and here, I'm kind of stuck with it being centered, plus or minus some, because I have to account for the tees. And so currently everything is slanted this way, because the wiring between the junction and the first tee is too short. And so even now with them slanted, like this entire wiring harness is slanted this way and diagonal in the little hole here, because it's not long enough. And again, for like a $200 wiring harness, and something that they've been doing forever, I mean, these cars are over a decade old, and I know they've been selling these wiring harnesses forever. I don't know why that's still short like that. And maybe I'm doing something wrong. I mean, feel free to comment and correct me and call me names. I don't really care. But yeah, I'm kind of disappointed in that. And then also, like the ground plug is too short from the video at least. So maybe I am doing something wrong, but it's like 4 inches too short. The hot cables are also a little too short from what I've seen. Being able to compare. So again, maybe I'm doing something wrong. I'm not sure, but that aside, the intercooler's going great. But yeah, that I just need to tie up some wiring on it. I'm braiding the cables that go into the passenger or not. I'm braiding the cables that go into the engine compartments, so everything looks nice. I already have like the wiring harness for the engine and everything pretty much braided, with the exception of a couple things, just to make everything look good. As for what needs to be done from here, with my head unit, I got the stock injectors and the stock fuel rail from the Shelby. So I already had my injectors cleaned by a place called Injector Masters. I'm from Oregon, so if you're in the Clackamas area in Oregon, Injector Masters did a really good job at cleaning them, from what I can tell. They give you a whole sheet on flow rates and everything, and all the data you could want about the injectors. And so I'm also going to send my fuel rail there as well to have them clean that. And so I'll know that everything fuel-wise is clean. So I'll get that finished. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with the fuel line, the factory fuel line in the car as it is now, because anybody with this car who's been under the hood will know that it's a hard line fuel line from pretty much right under the brake booster up into the front of your driver's side head, where it tees into the stock fuel rail for the Coyotes. And so the GT500 fuel rail, the input is back towards the firewall, and it's sticking like diagonally up and out. And so with a hard line, you kind of have to, like, you could spearhead it in the side, but then it kind of looks ugly. And so I might make some Dash 8 line that runs from the connection underneath the brake booster into the fuel rail, just so it looks a little bit nicer. And then I need to still do the booster pump. But that's fuel. The belt drive's pretty much done. Like I said, I'm just waiting for the 3.6 pulley. Intercooler system's pretty much done, other than some miscellaneous wiring. I did buy the Canton Racing reservoir. I believe it's pretty much used for Paxton setups, and what it sits right off your passenger side strut tower, in between the strut tower and the valve cover. It's kind of like a wedge shape, so it sits in there. And so I bought that off American Muscle. It's funny because American Muscle says that it's used for an 05 through 09 Mustang, but half of the customer pictures are for guys that are using it in the 11 through 14 Coyotes. So I bought one. It should work. I think you need a bracket from the Paxton kit to attach it to the strut tower, so I might have to make my own bracket. But it works. It should look a lot better than the Whipple plastic degas bottle they give you in the kit. Yeah. And then I think that's pretty much it for like the main areas. The cold air intake. So I was running the Air-Aid Race cold air intake on my 18 manifold before I tore this down, and I still have it because I wanted to run it on this. But the problem is the way that the Predator blower is set up. It moves the intake to the right, and then with the throttle body adapter and everything, it pushes the intake out and towards the front of the car. So I test fit it very kind of unofficially, and it didn't look like it was gonna fit. So I might have to find something a little bit more flexible to run. I don't really want to cut up that intake, just in the fact of like I don't want to ruin a perfectly good intake like that, and be caught with my pants down where it doesn't fit. So that's TBD. I think that's going to be the next biggest issue. But I think after that, it should be pretty much done. I am going to throw some gauges. I want a triple pillar gauge pod for the A pillar, or a triple gauge pod for the A pillar, and I already have Innovate's oil pressure / oil temp and their fuel pressure gauges, their digital gauges, and then I'm looking for a boost gauge. So those will go in, and I think it's pretty much done. But yeah, so that's where the build update ends. And this came to mind. I do want to put it out there. As a guy that is currently sitting halfway through his build, kind of looking back on expenditure, and because this, like, I came into this build thinking that the blower was going to be like a budget option. I have an Excel sheet. I haven't updated in a while, but I'm guessing I'm in like the $6,000 to $7,000 range, probably, maybe a little bit more, or not. Probably not more. Maybe a little bit less. Keep in mind that was also with oil pump gears and a one-piece drive shaft, so you could probably knock off about $1,000 off that just from those two. Plus or minus clutch as well. I don't remember if I had that factored, but I'm really thinking about VMP's Predator Swap kit, and I'm thinking about the things that, like, if I were to do it again, I probably wouldn't buy the kit. I would probably just piece out what you need. And so, and this really comes from somebody that, like, I've had good luck with Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. As long as you are good at, smelling out red flags and being good about vetting what you're buying, you can find things for way better prices than new. Like I said, I bought the triple pass for almost half of what it was, and it was brand new. But looking at, like, the VMP kit, like, I didn't use the heat exchanger. I'm probably not going to use their pulley. I am going to use their okay, so all the things I didn't use. I didn't use their heat exchanger. I didn't use their pulley. I didn't use the fuel injectors. I didn't use their degas bottle. I think that's about it. But, like, that right there is about $1,000. Shit, where's the other $1,000 coming from? I don't know. For like a $2,100, $2,200 kit, like, it would have been way better to piece it out yourself and just, there are things that VMP has that you pretty much have to buy, like the throttle body adapter and probably their pulley system, just because Department of Boost doesn't have a Predator Supercharger pulley system yet. So VMP really is kind of the king of the market right there. And then a booster pump. Pretty much that. But as far as I'm concerned, I think Whipple makes a booster. But there's a bunch of people that make booster pumps, so you're not locked in with VMP on that either. It's just like I probably could have saved like $1,000 by not just piecing things together myself. So I know I came into the video series pretty gung ho with VMP, but recent experience has kind of tainted my views otherwise. So I would vet your sources a little bit more before you invest that much dough into it, especially if you're like me, where you get lucky enough with the supercharger coming with the fuel, all the fuel system you'll need. So yeah, it's not really necessary. Oh, the bracket kit, that's what the other cost was. But yeah, And that's not entirely a dig on VMP. That's just more a dig on like how their pricing. I think they're a little steep on some of their stuff, like the wiring harnesses. So, uh, yeah, just vet what you're buying. But you know, if you got money to burn, then throw that out the window. But if you're like me, where you know, $100 means a lot, like just check it out. But yeah, moving forward, I'm hoping the next video, which I think is part 4, will have the head unit on and the injectors and fuel system on, and hopefully the belt drive completed. I don't think the heat exchanger system will be set up quite yet, and probably not the fuel line or the gauges. So maybe a 5-part series, probably a 6-part counting tuning and stuff. But I think we're getting there. We're getting close. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.